Hello and welcome back to our channel, where we discuss the most pressing global issues of our time. We previously avoided discussing the main conflict in the Middle East, but based on many requests, today we're trying to side with those who yearn for peace by tackling a topic that has influenced global politics, shaped generations, and resulted in decades of conflict, and has the potential to spark further ones on a regional, religion, or even global scale. Would declaring the state of Palestine solve the Middle East conflict? Solving this paradox holds not only the hopes and dreams of millions, but also the weight of historical complexities, political struggles, and human tragedy. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the history, the challenges of such a resolution, and what the future might look like if it becomes a reality. So, let's get started. Historical background. To understand the current conflict between Israel and Palestine, we need to go back to the late 19th century. During this time, two major forces began to shape the region: the rise of Jewish nationalism, known as Zionism, and the growing desire for independence among Arab populations, including the Arabs living in what was then known as Palestine. Zionism, which emerged in response to centuries of anti-Semitic persecution in Europe, aimed to establish a Jewish homeland, where the Jewish people have deep historical and religious roots. However, this aspiration conflicted with the interests of the Arab populations already living there, leading to tensions that escalated throughout the early 20th century. Fast forward to World War I, when the collapse of the Ottoman Empire left Palestine under British control. The British made conflicting promises during this period. On one hand, they expressed support for a Jewish homeland in the Balfour Declaration of 1917. On the other, they promised Arab independence. These conflicting promises laid the groundwork for the future conflict between Jews and Arabs in the region. After World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust, the international community sought to find a solution for the displaced Jewish population. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan that would divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. While the Jewish community accepted the plan, the Arab states and the Palestinian leadership rejected it, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also regarded as the War of Independence of Israelis and Nakba, catastrophe in Arabic by the Palestinians, it began on May 15, 1948, the day after Israel declared its independence. Arab nations, including Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon, immediately launched military attacks against the newly established State of Israel. The conflict was fought on multiple fronts, involving both regular armies and irregular Palestinian Arab forces. Throughout the war, Israel expanded its territory beyond the UN's proposed partition borders, capturing significant areas. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled, leading to the ongoing refugee crisis. The war ended when armistice agreements in 1949, leaving Israel with about 78% of the former British Mandate of Palestine, while the West Bank came under Jordanian control and Gaza under Egyptian administration. By the end of that war, Israel had declared independence and controlled much of the territory originally designated for both the Jewish and Arab states. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were displaced, becoming refugees in neighboring countries and sparking one of the most significant humanitarian crises in the modern Middle East. Since then, there has been no established Palestinian state. The conflict has continued for over 70 years. The question: would declaring the state of Palestine solve the conflict? Now, let's address the core question. Would declaring the state of Palestine today bring peace to the region? To answer that, we need to examine the practical challenges and the opportunities that come with statehood. Challenge 1: defining borders and the future of Israeli settlements. Perhaps the most immediate challenge in declaring a Palestinian state is defining its borders. The West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem are widely considered to be the territories of a future Palestinian state. However, these areas are complicated by the presence of Israeli settlements, particularly in the West Bank. As of today, over 450,000 Israeli settlers are living in the West Bank. For Palestinians, the expansion of these settlements makes it almost impossible to create a contiguous, viable state. Any future Palestinian state would need to address the status of these settlements. But Israel has shown no willingness to dismantle them. In fact, many Israeli leaders see these settlements as a vital part of their security strategy, especially since the region has witnessed repeated conflicts and rocket attacks from Palestinian territories. Would a new Palestinian government be able to negotiate a land swap or reach compromise on settlements? Or would the presence of these settlements lead to more conflict? Challenge 2: where will the capital be? Jerusalem is a city sacred to Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. It's also the most contested piece of real estate in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Both Israel and the Palestinians claim Jerusalem as their capital, and both consider it non-negotiable. After the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel annexed East Jerusalem, which was predominantly Palestinian and home to many important religious sites, including the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Church of the Holy Sepulchres. Since then, Israel has declared Jerusalem as its undivided capital, while Palestinians view East Jerusalem as the capital of their future state. The issue has not only complicated peace talks, but also fueled violence and unrest in the city itself. Even if Palestine was declared a state, the question of who controls Jerusalem would remain unresolved. Would a two-state solution create a scenario where the city is shared between both nations, or would it continue to be a flashpoint for violence? Or would the Palestinians have to search for another capital? Challenge 3. The right of return for Palestinian refugees. Another significant challenge is the right of return for Palestinian refugees. After the 1948 war, around 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. Today, their descendants number in the millions, scattered across refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and beyond. These refugees and their descendants demand the right to return to their ancestral homes in what is now Israel. For Palestinians, the right to return is not just a political demand, but a deeply emotional and symbolic one. However, Israel opposes this, fearing that the return of millions of Palestinians would jeopardize its Jewish majority and change the demographic makeup of the country. The Israelis believe that previously mentioned and neighboring Arab nations should grant local nationality to those refugees, thus ending the whole issue that has been one of the core stumbling blocks in previous peace negotiations. Even if Palestine were declared a state, the question remains, where would the refugees go? Would they be resettled in the new Palestinian state, or would Israel be pressured to accept some form of compromise on the right of return? Potential opportunities, international recognition, and economic growth. While the challenges are significant, declaring a Palestinian state also presents opportunities, particularly in terms of world peace, international recognition, and economic development. Many countries around the world, including much of Europe and parts of Asia, have already recognized Palestine as a state. Full international recognition would open the door to new diplomatic relationships, trade agreements, and financial aid. Economic independence could provide the Palestinian people with a pathway to self-sufficiency. By controlling their own borders, resources, and economic policies, Palestinians could invest in infrastructure, education, and industry. Thus, in turn, could create jobs and improve living standards, which have been severely affected by decades of conflict and occupation. A stable, prosperous Palestinian state would also benefit the wider region. Countries like Jordan, Egypt, and Lebanon, which currently host large Palestinian refugee populations, could see a reduction in the strain on their resources as refugees are resettled or returned home. Additionally, a peaceful resolution could lead to stronger economic and cultural ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors, creating a more interconnected and prosperous Middle East. Moreover, it could contribute to the normalization of regional relations with neighboring Arab countries, something currently sought by the State of Israel irrespective of the conflict. Impact on the Israeli community. What would the declaration of a Palestinian state mean for the Israeli people? For many Israelis, the idea of a Palestinian state raises significant security concerns. For some, it resembles a threat to the mere existence of the Jewish state. Israel has fought multiple wars with its neighbors, and the threat of violence looms large. Israel has long prioritized its security, citing rocket attacks and other forms of aggression as its reasons for maintaining control over Palestinian terrorists. Would a Palestinian state be able to curb extremism and prevent attacks on Israeli civilians? In 2017, an Israeli official proposed the idea of building an artificial island off the coast of Gaza for the displaced Palestinians.
Israel's Ministry of Intelligence and Transportation has released details about a proposal to build an artificial island nearly 5 kilometers off the coast of the Gaza.
A growing number of Israelis believe that the two-state solution could bring long-term peace and stability. After all, a peaceful and stable Palestine could mean less conflict and more cooperation in areas like trade, technology, and environmental efforts. But these potential benefits rely on strong leadership and mutual trust, something that's been sorely lacking. Regional and global implications. Globally, the creation of a Palestinian state could change the way countries approach Middle Eastern diplomacy. It could alleviate some tensions in the Arab world, or it could create new divisions, depending on how it's handled. The U.S., Europe, Russia, and other global players would have to adjust their policies to navigate this new reality. Could this lead to a new era of peace, or would it just deepen global divides? Is peace possible? So, would declaring the state of Palestine solve the Middle East conflict? Well, the answer is complicated. Today, the vast majority of Palestinians believe it does, while the majority of Israelis have many reasons to say that it doesn't. It could offer Palestinians dignity, autonomy, and a sense of nationhood, without addressing the core issues: Jerusalem, borders, the right of return, security concerns. The declaration alone wouldn't bring lasting peace. The truth is that peace requires much more than just political solutions. It requires mutual understanding, empathy, and trust, qualities that have been eroded over decades of violence and mistrust. While the road ahead is uncertain, the hope for peace still exists, and that perhaps is the most important thing. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. What do you think? Could a Palestinian state bring peace, or is the situation more complex? Can the current state of Israel equally accommodate all current ethnicities? Could this ongoing conflict spark World War III, just like it emerged post-World War II? Let us know below.